Today, we journey into the shadows of what might have been. The one battle that, had it played out differently, could have utterly changed the fate of Arda. This is not a tale of what-ifs spun wildly from imagination, but a careful unearthing of lore. A story anchored in Tolkien's vision, a critical turning point that teetered on the edge of ruin or redemption. The battle we speak of is the Nirnaeth Aranoediad, the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, fought in 472 of the First Age, a clash so devastating and fraught with sorrow that its outcome echoed for millennia. But what if this battle had gone differently? Could the darkness of Morgoth have been banished from Middle-earth then and there? Let us walk this path together and uncover how this single moment could have reshaped all that followed. In the long history of Middle-earth, there are many battles that bore the weight of fate, but few stood as pivotal as the Nirnaeth Arnoediad. This was not merely a confrontation of arms, but a culmination of centuries of strife, hope, and betrayal. After the Dargo Bragaloch in 455 of the First Age, where Morgoth broke the long siege of Angband, the Free Peoples were driven back in despair. Yet not all was lost. Maedhros, son of Feanor, labored tirelessly to forge the Union of Maedhros, a grand alliance of elves, men, and dwarves, a last hope against the Shadow. As stated in the Silmarillion, he gathered all the elves whom he could, and the men that came out of the east were summoned to war. This alliance was unprecedented. The Noldor of the East, the Sindar, and even the dwarves of Belegost set aside ancient mistrusts. Men of the House of Hador and the newly allied Easterlings under Ulfang also pledged their spears. And in the west, Turgon, hidden king of Gondolin, emerged from secrecy at the last hour. A vision of lost grandeur returned to war. The stage was set. If ever there was a moment Morgoth could be overthrown, it was here. But hope, as ever in Tolkien's world, is no guarantee of triumph. And then came the treachery. The battle opened with a feigned retreat, a stratagem of Fingon meant to draw Morgoth's hosts into disarray. For a brief flicker of time, the plan worked. Glaurung the dragon was driven back by the dwarves. The hosts of Angband reeled. Turgon and Fingon stood together, elven kings reunited beneath the banner of the Valar. But betrayal struck deep. As noted in the Silmarillion, the sons of Ulfang turned upon the allies and joined with Morgoth. Thus the battle was turned. Fingon, High King of the Noldor, was slain by Gothmog, Lord of Balrogs. Hurin and Huor fought to the last, and Hurin was captured, his fate bound to Morgoth's curse. And yet, imagine if Alfang had not betrayed the Union. Had the Easterlings held their loyalty, Morgoth's forces might have truly been broken. The dwarves of Belegost had wounded Glaurung, Fingon and Turgon had breached the northern front. Morgoth's captains, Balrogs, dragons and trolls, though mighty, were not invincible. It is not beyond reason to believe that Angband could have fallen. Not easily, not swiftly, but perhaps mortally. Had Morgoth been overthrown in 472 of the First Age, the very foundation of Middle-earth's history would have shifted. Consider this. Without the Nirnaeth's tragic end, Gondolin might never have fallen. For its fall in 510 of the First Age was a direct consequence of Morgoth's vengeance and knowledge gained through Hurin's release and torment. If Turgon City had stood longer, protected by its secrecy and unbreached by treachery, then perhaps it could have become a true beacon, a capital of resistance, even a renewed Eldaran kingdom in the west of Beleriand. Moreover, think of the fate of the Silmarils. Had Morgoth been defeated and captured, as was hoped by Maedhros and Fingon, the holy jewels might have been recovered. Not through centuries of grief and destruction, but by lawful reclamation. The Oath of Feanor, which brought such ruin upon Elf and Edain alike, could have ended in fulfillment instead of madness. The kinslayings, the doom of the Noldor, and the bitter exile of the sons of Feanor might have been softened, if not wholly mended. Thus perished the High King of the Noldor, most proud and valiant. It is written of Fingon's death in the Silmarillion, but had he lived, the Noldor might have known unity once again. One must also reckon with the deeper theological implications. Had Morgoth fallen by elvish and mortal hands alone, it would have altered the moral architecture of Tolkien's legendarium. The Valar, distant in their halls of Valinor, refrained from intervening in the First Age until the War of Wrath in 545 of the First Age. Would such a triumph have accelerated the fading of the elves, or perhaps stayed it longer? Would Valinor have opened its shores to the faithful sooner? Or might such a victory have kindled dangerous pride among the Noldor once more? And what of men? The houses of Hador and Harleth suffered grievously in the Nirnaeth, and it was through their valor, especially Húrin's last stand, that the legacy of the Edain was sealed. Had the battle ended in victory, perhaps Húrin would not have been captured, his son Túrin not cursed. The tragic saga of Narnai Chin Húrin, recounted fully in The Children of Húrin, Chilin and Narnai Chin Húrin, might never have unfolded. But then, neither would the moral weight of that story, the price of defying Morgoth, the doom entwined with free will and fate, have enriched the legendarium with such dark beauty. Had Morgoth fallen at the Nir-Naeth, Sauron too might never have risen as he did. In Second Age 1000, Sauron began to build Barad-dûr. But in a world where Morgoth had been overthrown by the hands of elves and men, would Sauron have dared step into the power vacuum? Or would he have been hunted down, a lieutenant of a broken master, fading into shadow as many of the lesser Maiar did? These are not idle speculations, but rooted in the structure of Tolkien's world, which turns upon fragile threads, where a single battle, a single betrayal alters the arc of history. Morgoth's defeat at the Nirnaeth would not have merely ended a war, it would have rewritten the ages that followed. In a world where the Nirnaeth Ar-Noediad ended in victory, the balance of the First Age would not have merely shifted, it would have transformed the fate of Arda itself. Without the terror of Morgoth, the geographical and metaphysical wound inflicted upon Beleriand might never have occurred. Recall that it was only after the War of Wrath, fought decades later in 583 of the First Age, that Beleriand was broken and drowned beneath the sea. But if Morgoth had been slain or captured in 472, the devastating destruction of the land and the sundering of elves from their ancient homes might have been prevented. More than mere geography, the very song of Arda, the music of the Ainur, might have sounded differently through the ages. For though Morgoth's discord was woven into the music itself, Ilúvatar proclaimed that even his greatest evils would serve a higher harmony. A mortal victory against the first Dark Lord would have been a luminous example of that harmony, beginning to manifest early, as Tolkien mused in the Athrobeth Finrod, Andreth from Morgoth's Ring. The children of Ilúvatar were not made merely to suffer, but to ascend. They are not the followers, but the heirs and fulfillers of the world. A triumph at Nirnaeth would have foreshadowed that inheritance, and perhaps hastened the healing of Arda Mard. We must also consider the philosophical undercurrents. Tolkien conceived history as a long defeat, tempered only by eucatastrophe, the sudden turn toward hope. In this light, the Nirnaeth, as it occurred, a shattering loss, becomes a necessary sorrow that prepares the way for the deeper redemptions of later ages. But had the battle turned toward victory, we might have seen a different sort of myth emerge, one not of gradual renewal, but of early deliverance. It would be a Middle Earth, where hope is not deferred, but realized in the valor of its peoples. And therein lies a quiet danger. Would the pride of the Noldor have hardened once more? Had Maedhros, Maglor, and their brethren recovered the Silmarils through triumph rather than tragedy, would they have honored the Valar's wisdom, or fallen again to possessiveness and doom? Even Tolkien himself, in his letters, hinted at the peril of unchecked victory. In letter 131, he wrote, "The human stories of the Silmarillion are the tragic ones. The sorrows are necessary to show the light." A victory at Nirnaeth, glorious as it might seem, could have planted seeds of new disaster. And yet, we cannot help but dream. Dream of a realm where Fingon rules beside Turgon, where Gondolin remains unbroken, where the Silmarils are restored, and where Sauron never ascends to claim the mantle of his master. A realm where the Second and Third Ages are not marked by ruin and exile, but by rebuilding and reconciliation. It is not the world Tolkien gave us, but it is a world his legendarium allows us to glimpse, if only through the veil of might have beens. Let us now draw our tale to its end, as all tales in Arda must return to the music that shaped them. Had the Nerneath Arnoiad ended in victory, the entire fabric of the Second and Third Ages would have worn a different face. The proud kings of Númenor, whose lineage stemmed from the Edain who fought at the Nerneath, might not have risen so high nor fallen so far, for it was the despair and longing bred from Morgoth's long shadow that sowed the seeds of Númenor's pride and ultimate rebellion. Without the trauma of their near extinction in Beleriand, would the Númenorians have grown so fearful of death, or so estranged from the Valar? Perhaps Ar-Pharazôn would never have challenged the ban of the Valar in 3319 of the Second Age, and the world would not have been broken or the straight road hidden. Further still, the Rings of Power may never have come into being. Celebrimbor, descendant of Feanor, forged them with the intention of preserving beauty in a world slowly slipping into decay. But in a world where Morgoth had been overthrown and healing begun early, that deep-seated despair, the fear that all would fade, might never have taken root. The elves, ever burdened by memory, may not have clung to time as tightly. Sauron, lacking his master's triumph as precedent, and perhaps pursued relentlessly by the victorious free peoples, might never have dared emerge as the next Dark Lord. And Frodo, Sam, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, their names may never have passed into legend, for the Great War of the Third Age would not have arisen at all. No fellowship would have formed. No One Ring would need to be cast into fire. Yet here we reach a paradox, for though a victory at Nirneth could have spared the world unspeakable pain, it also would have robbed it of the noblest deeds of its later hero. Would Middle-earth have been brighter, or merely different? Tolkien's world is one of long shadows and piercing lights, where even the greatest victories are tinged with sorrow and the deepest losses carry seeds of hope. In the end, perhaps the Nirnaeth had to be lost. Perhaps its tragedy was the crucible in which the true strength of elves and men was tested. Without such sorrow, the courage of Eärendil, sailing alone into the west in 532 of the First Age, might never have moved the Valar to war. Without the ruin of Beleriand, there would be no myth of the West beyond reach, no yearning that stirs the hearts of elves, men, and readers alike. For what is Tolkien's Middle-earth but a mirror of our own world, where the battles we lose often shape us more than the ones we win? The Nerneath Arnadayad remains a scar across the legends of Arda, but within its sorrow lies a gleaming truth, that even unnumbered tears can water the seeds of hope. So let us remember Fingon's charge, Hurin's last stand, the roar of the dwarves against Glaurung's flame. Let us honor the might-have-been not as a lament, but as a beacon, reminding us that in Tolkien's world, as in ours, the tale is never truly ended, and hope, like light through the clouds of Thangorodrim, may yet break through. Thank you for walking this road with us. If you've found wonder in this journey, subscribe and join us again as we explore the forgotten, the hidden, and the luminous corners of Middle-earth. Until then, Elen Sila Lumen Omentialvo. A star shines on the hour of our meeting and our parting.